Save me, plant your seed in me. 5. Apache girl pleads with lone rancher. The sun was just beginning to rise over the rolling hills of the Arizona desert, painting the sky in soft shades of pink and gold. The air was cool, carrying the scent of dry earth and sagebrush. From a distance, a small group of Apache homes seemed quiet, peaceful, but not everything was calm in the heart of 17-year-old Naili. Her brown eyes were wide and filled with worry, and her fingers nervously fidgeted with the worn edge of her shawl. She had always been curious about the world beyond her small village, but now curiosity had grown into something more urgent, a desire for change, a need she could no longer ignore. Naeli had grown up surrounded by stories. Her grandmother would sit her down in the evening and tell her about brave warriors, clever hunters, and the long history of their people. Those stories made her proud of her heritage, but they also made her restless. She wanted to do more than just listen to stories. She wanted to be a part of them. She wanted to prove that she could be brave, that she could find her own path in a world that seemed bigger than she could ever imagine. Her home was small, a simple structure made of wood and earth, but it was filled with warmth. Her mother had a gentle smile and a voice that could calm even the most restless child. Her father, though quiet, had hands that told stories of hard work and careful craftsmanship. But lately, the house had felt smaller, more confining. There was a restlessness in Naeli that nothing at home could satisfy. She felt like a bird trapped in a cage, longing to see the wide skies beyond the hills. One morning, as Naeli walked near the edge of the village, she spotted the lone rancher for the first time. He was a man who lived alone, far from the other settlements, on a piece of land that stretched endlessly into the horizon. Stories about him were whispered among the villagers. Some said he was gruff and unapproachable, while others believed he had a kind heart hidden under his stern exterior. Naeli didn't know what to think, but she felt drawn to him, as if the winds of the desert themselves were urging her to find him. The rancher, whose name was Elias, had a tall, lean frame, and his face carried the lines of many years under the sun. He was early in his 50s, and his gray-streaked hair hinted at experience and wisdom. He had always preferred solitude, tending to his cattle and the land with careful hands. His life was quiet, predictable, and he liked it that way. But on that morning, as he repaired a fence near his corral, he noticed a figure standing at the edge of the trees, watching him. At first, he squinted, uncertain. But then he saw Naeli stepping closer, her steps hesitant yet determined. "Good morning," Naeli called softly, her voice almost swallowed by the wind. Elias turned, surprised by her courage. He had rarely seen anyone approach his property without warning, and it had been a long time since a young visitor had ventured near. "Good morning," he replied cautiously. His voice was calm but carried a note of curiosity. "What brings you here?" Naeli hesitated. She had rehearsed what she wanted to say 100 times in her mind, but now that she was standing before him, words felt fragile and small. She took a deep breath and stepped forward. I need help," she said. Her voice trembled slightly, but there was a strength in her eyes that made him pay closer attention. "I want to learn. I want to see more. I want to find a way to live differently, to understand the world beyond my home." There was something unusual about the way she spoke, a quiet determination that he hadn't seen in years. Most of the people who wandered near his land were curious, yes, but they lacked the courage to speak their intentions clearly. Naeli had courage, and that caught his attention. "Learning comes with hard work," he said finally. "And seeing the world, that's not always easy." "Why do you think you're ready for it?" Naeli swallowed. because I feel like I'm meant for something more. I want to understand, to grow, to help my people, and I don't know how else to do it." She looked down at her hands, fidgeting with the edges of her shawl. "I've tried asking at home, but I need someone to show me, someone who knows. I think you might know." Elias remained silent for a long moment. The wind rustled through the trees, and for a while only the distant calls of birds could be heard. He had spent decades alone, guarding his land, and rarely had anyone come to him seeking guidance. He could have sent her away, told her to return home. Yet something in her plea stirred a memory of his own youth, of curiosity, of daring to dream, of wanting more than the life that had been handed to him. "All right," he said at last. "I can show you some things, but you must promise to work hard, to listen, and to respect the land and the life it provides." Nayeli's face lit up with hope, and she nodded eagerly. "I promise. I will work hard. I will listen. I will respect everything." Over the next few weeks, Nayeli began visiting Elias's ranch regularly. Each morning she walked the dusty paths to reach his homestead, greeted by the lowing of cattle and the distant cry of hawks circling above. Elias taught her how to care for the animals, mend fences, and understand the patterns of the land. He showed her how to track the movements of deer, recognize the signs of rain, and even prepare simple meals from the ingredients available nearby. For Nayeli, these lessons were not just practical. They were a window into a world she had never known. Each day brought new challenges, moments of frustration, and small victories that filled her with pride. She began to feel a sense of independence, a confidence that had been buried beneath her uncertainty at home. At the same time, Elias began to notice changes in himself. Teaching her required patience, and her curiosity reminded him of his younger self. Her questions, sometimes bold, sometimes hesitant, sparked in him a sense of purpose he hadn't felt in years. He realized that, while he had offered guidance, he was learning too, about patience, about trust, and about the importance of passing knowledge to those willing to seek it. Their days became a rhythm: morning chores, lessons in the sun, shared stories in the evenings. Nayeli spoke of her dreams, her hopes for her people, and the stories her grandmother had told her. Elias shared his experiences, both successes and failures, offering lessons not just about survival, but about character and resilience. One afternoon, as the sun dipped low and the desert cast long shadows, Nayeli paused to look at the horizon. The hills seemed endless, a reminder of the vast world beyond her village. She felt a flutter of excitement and fear all at once. For the first time, she realized that the life she had imagined was not just a dream. It could be real if she continued to learn, to grow, and to embrace the challenges ahead. Elias noticed her thoughtful silence. "You're thinking about more than just today, aren't you?" he asked gently. Nayeli nodded. "I'm thinking about what comes next, about who I want to become. I don't want to stay small. Not in my heart, not in my mind." He smiled faintly, a rare softness in his eyes. "Good. Keep that fire. It will carry you far." And in that quiet moment, with the desert stretching endlessly around them, Nayeli felt the first taste of freedom, not just from the physical boundaries of her village, but from the fear and uncertainty that had held her back for so long. She had found a mentor, a guide, and perhaps something more important, a sense that her life could be hers to shape, her story hers to write. Nayeli's mornings began to feel alive with purpose. Each day at Elias's ranch was different, yet each day carried the same lessons: patience, care, and respect for the land. She had begun to wake before the sun, listening to the quiet sounds of the desert, The soft rustling of leaves, the distant call of a coyote, the whisper of the wind over dry grass, those sounds no longer frightened her. Instead, they filled her with a strange kind of energy, as if the world itself was speaking to her, encouraging her to keep moving forward. Yet, despite the sense of freedom she felt, challenges were beginning to make themselves known. Life on the ranch was not easy. Carrying heavy buckets of water in the midday sun left her arms burning and her back aching. Mending broken fences required strength she sometimes didn't know she had, and caring for the animals demanded constant attention and alertness. Each mistake came with a lesson, and sometimes the lesson was harsh. A fence left unattended meant that a calf could wander off, and if she missed a sign in the sky, a sudden desert storm could surprise her. One afternoon, Elias noticed that Nayeli's hands were blistered from hauling water for the third time that day. He approached her quietly, wiping his own hands on his pants before speaking. "You're working too hard," he said gently, though his eyes held a hint of amusement. "There's nothing wrong with learning, but you need to pace yourself. Strength comes slowly, not all at once." Nayeli shook her head, her dark hair falling over her shoulders. "I can't slow down," she admitted. "I want to do everything right."
"I don't want to make mistakes." Her voice was small, but determined.
"I want to prove that I can handle it." Elias looked at her, seeing not just determination, but the fear beneath it, the fear of failing herself and disappointing the people she cared about. He knelt down, resting a hand on her shoulder. "Nayeli, mistakes are part of learning. You will fail sometimes, and that's okay. What matters is that you get back up and try again. That is how you grow." She nodded slowly, letting his words sink in. She wanted to believe them, and deep down, she did. But fear was stubborn. Still, she carried on, day after day, learning to balance her eagerness with patience. But life in the desert did not allow much time for comfort. One morning, as the sun rose like a glowing ball over the horizon, Nayeli noticed smoke curling above the hills near her village. A pit of worry grew in her stomach. Something was happening back home. She had been spending so much time at the ranch that she had not realized how fragile life in her village could be. Without hesitation, she turned to Elias. "We need to go," she said, her voice urgent but steady. "Something is happening in the village. I can feel it." Elias frowned, his brows knitting together. "Are you sure?" he asked. He had learned to trust her instincts, but the desert was vast and assumptions could be dangerous. "I'm sure," she said. "I have to see. I can't stay here while something happens to my people." Elias studied her for a long moment. He had come to care for Nayeli more than he would admit aloud. He knew the desert could be dangerous, and he had always valued caution. But he also understood her need to protect her home. Finally, he nodded. "Then we go together. But you must stay close to me. We cannot afford mistakes." Together they set off across the dry, sun-baked land, moving with careful steps through the hills and valleys that led to Nayeli's village. The wind whipped around them, tugging at their clothes and scattering dust in their path, but they pressed forward. Nayeli's heart pounded with a mixture of fear and determination. She hoped that whatever danger awaited them was not too serious, and she prayed silently that she would find her family safe. When they reached the village, the source of the smoke became clear. A small fire had started in one of the storage huts. Thankfully, the villagers were already working together to contain it. Nayeli's father was there, helping to carry water to put out the flames. Seeing him safe brought a surge of relief to her chest. She ran to him, brushing past others in her path. "Father!" she called. "Are you all right?" He looked up, surprise and relief crossing his face. "Nayeli, you came." "We're fine. Mostly, the fire spread quickly, but everyone is safe. Nayeli took a deep breath, letting her shoulders relax for the first time that day. The fear that had driven her to rush here slowly ebbed. "I'm glad," she said softly, her voice trembling.
I was worried. I didn't know what to do until I saw the smoke from the hills. Her father smiled, ruffling her hair.
You're brave, Nayeli, always thinking of others.
"That courage will serve you well." Elias stayed at the edge of the village, watching quietly. He noticed the way the villagers treated Nayeli with respect and warmth, how her presence seemed to lift the spirits of those around her. He realized that her bravery was not just about facing danger. It was about her heart, her willingness to act even when afraid. Once the fire was under control, Nayeli found a moment to speak with Elias. "I didn't know what to do," she admitted, her hands still slightly trembling from the rush of adrenaline.
But I wanted to help.
"I wanted to make sure everyone was safe." Elias placed a hand on her shoulder.
You did well.
"You acted with courage, and that is more than many could do. But remember, courage also means knowing when to ask for help and when to take a moment to think. Both are important." The days following the fire were filled with repair and recovery. Nayeli worked alongside her family and other villagers, rebuilding the small hut and helping carry water and supplies. She discovered that helping her people gave her a sense of purpose beyond what she had felt, even at the ranch. Yet, she also realized how much she had learned from Elias, how patience, planning, and careful observation could make even the most difficult tasks possible. During these days, Nayeli began to notice changes in herself. She felt stronger, not just in body but in spirit. Her confidence grew, and she began to speak more openly with the villagers, offering suggestions and taking initiative in ways she hadn't before. The small victories, the repaired fence, the safe return of a lost goat, the calm in a worried child's eyes, gave her hope and fueled her determination. Elias watched these changes quietly, impressed by her growth. She was no longer the hesitant girl who had approached him weeks ago. She was becoming someone capable, someone ready to face challenges not with fear, but with thoughtful action. And yet, he knew that the desert and the world beyond were full of even greater challenges. She had learned much, but she had much more to discover. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon and the sky turned a deep, calming blue, Nayeli sat with Elias on a small hill overlooking the village. The air was cool now, carrying the scent of the desert flowers that bloomed at night. "I never realized how strong I could be," she said softly, staring at the twinkling lights of the village below. "I thought I was too small, too weak to make a difference. But now I feel like I can do something, that I can help, that I can matter." Elias nodded, his face calm but thoughtful. "Strength is not just about muscles or skill. It's about heart, persistence, and learning from every experience. You have all of those, Nayeli. You've always had them. You just needed a chance to see it in yourself." Nayeli smiled, feeling a warmth in her chest that had nothing to do with the desert sun. She realized that she was ready to face whatever challenges came next, not alone, but with guidance, courage, and hope. And in that quiet moment, she made a silent promise to herself. She would not stop learning, not stop growing, and not stop helping those who needed her. And so, as the first stars appeared in the night sky, Nayeli felt a deep sense of determination. The path ahead was uncertain, full of challenges and obstacles she could not yet imagine. But she also knew something else. She had the strength, the courage, and the heart to face it all. The days passed quietly at the ranch, but Nayeli began to notice something she hadn't felt before. The world was not always kind, and learning how to survive and grow sometimes meant facing fear head-on. She had spent weeks learning the rhythms of life on the ranch, mastering the small tasks, and slowly gaining confidence in her abilities. Yet, despite her growing strength, a new challenge was approaching, one that would test not just her skills, but her courage, her judgment, and her understanding of the people around her. It began on a morning when the desert sun rose pale and soft, illuminating the hills with golden light. Nayeli had been tasked with checking the western pasture where the younger cattle grazed. Elias had given her instructions carefully, reminding her to observe the land, keep an eye on the animals, and watch for signs of trouble. She felt ready. She felt strong, but the desert, she was beginning to learn, had a way of humbling even the most confident soul. As she walked through the dusty terrain, Nayeli noticed the tracks of a wild coyote near the edge of the herd. She froze, her heart pounding, and watched as the coyote slinked along the ridge, eyes glinting in the morning sun. Her mind raced. Should she chase it away? Should she call for help? Nayeli remembered Elias's lessons. Act with calm, observe carefully, and never rush. Taking a deep breath, she moved slowly, keeping a safe distance while guiding the cattle toward the center of the pasture. The coyote followed at a distance, and Nayeli realized that she would need to be clever, not strong, to protect the animals. She picked up a small stick and tapped it against a rock, creating a noise that echoed softly through the valley. The coyote paused, ears twitching, then vanished into the brush. Nayeli exhaled, a mixture of relief and pride flooding her chest. She had handled the situation on her own. When she returned to Elias later that day, he studied her face carefully. "I can see you handled yourself," he said, a faint smile tugging at the corner of his mouth. "But remember, some challenges are bigger than they appear. You must always be ready, and you must always trust your instincts, but never forget to think before acting." Nayeli nodded. She knew he was right. The desert taught lessons that were not always clear, and sometimes mistakes could cost more than just pride. They could cost safety, or even lives. She had learned that courage alone was not enough. Intelligence, patience, and observation were just as important. But the real challenge came a few days later when word reached the ranch that travelers had arrived near her village. Nayeli's mother had sent a message through a messenger bird, explaining that strangers had appeared at the edge of the settlement. The villagers were wary, unsure of the travelers' intentions. Nayeli's heart sank. She had spent so long learning to protect and help her people, and now she felt a new responsibility to understand who these strangers were and whether they posed a threat. Elias agreed that they should go together to assess the situation. "You have grown strong, Nayeli," he said. "But remember, strength is more than skill. It is also patience, understanding, and the ability to see beyond fear." They set off across the desert, moving carefully toward the village. Nayeli's mind was a storm of thoughts.
Who were these travelers? Were they merchants, lost wanderers, or something more dangerous?
The desert was full of possibilities, and she had learned that assumptions could be misleading. When they arrived, the travelers were easy to see. A small group of adults had set up a temporary camp near the village. They looked tired from their journey but were not aggressive. Nayeli approached cautiously, remembering Elias's advice. Act with calm, speak clearly, and always observe. "Hello," she called softly. The travelers turned, eyes wary but not hostile. Nayeli stepped forward, her hands open in a gesture of peace. "I am Nayeli. This is my village." "Who are you, and why have you come here?" One of the travelers, a woman with kind eyes and a gentle voice, stepped forward. "We are travelers," she said. "We mean no harm. We are searching for work and safe passage. We heard of your village and hoped to rest and trade for food." Naeli studied them carefully. There was nothing in their manner to suggest danger, but she knew better than to trust appearances alone. She turned to Elias, who nodded slightly. They had come together, as a team, to assess the situation. After speaking with the travelers for a while, Naeli noticed that they had skills that could help the village. Some knew how to repair tools, others could teach new ways of farming or caring for animals. A spark of excitement grew in her chest. This could be an opportunity, not a threat. But she also felt responsibility. She would need to ensure that her village could trust these newcomers and that no harm came from their presence. Over the next few days, Naeli worked alongside Elias to guide the travelers and introduce them to the villagers. She felt a sense of pride watching her people interact, sharing knowledge and learning from each other. Yet, challenges arose. Some villagers were hesitant to trust strangers, fearful of theft or mischief. Naeli found herself mediating disputes, explaining intentions, and calming fears. She realized that courage was only part of leadership. Understanding, patience, and diplomacy were equally important. One afternoon, as she was helping a young traveler repair a broken cartwheel, Naeli overheard a conversation between two villagers. "Can we really trust them?" one whispered. "What if they are here to take from us?" Naeli took a deep breath. She could feel the tension rising. It would have been easy to respond with anger or frustration, but she remembered Elias's lessons. Act with calm, observe, and speak carefully. She stepped forward, her voice steady. "I understand your concerns," she said, "but I have watched them. They mean no harm. We must give them a chance. We can guide them and learn from them. If we act with care, everyone will benefit." Her words seemed to calm the villagers, if only slightly. Naeli felt a surge of confidence. She was no longer just a girl learning from Elias. She was a bridge between her people and the unknown, helping her village navigate a new challenge. The turning point came one evening when a sudden desert storm swept across the plains. Dark clouds rolled in, wind howling, and rain began to fall in sheets. The travelers' camp was in danger, tents threatening to collapse, fires extinguished by the rain. Naeli acted quickly, rallying villagers and travelers alike. She guided everyone to stronger shelters, shared tools and materials, and worked tirelessly to ensure safety. Elias watched in quiet pride. Naeli moved with a calm efficiency, her mind clear, her heart steady. She was not afraid, not because she did not feel fear, but because she had learned to act despite it. She coordinated efforts, calmed panicked voices, and made decisions with confidence. The storm raged, but under her guidance, everyone remained safe. When the storm finally passed, the village emerged to see the results of their combined efforts. Tents were repaired, animals accounted for, and no one was harmed. Naeli felt exhaustion and relief in equal measure, but she also felt something more, a deep sense of accomplishment. She had faced fear, uncertainty, and chaos, and she had led others with wisdom and care. That night, as the desert cooled and stars sparkled overhead, Elias spoke quietly to Naeli. "You have grown in ways I could not have imagined," he said. "You faced fear, you guided others, and you did not let doubt control you. That is true strength." Naeli smiled, feeling a warmth in her chest that went beyond pride. She realized that strength was not about doing everything alone. It was about learning, observing, guiding, and caring for others. She had learned patience, courage, and wisdom, all qualities she would carry forward in the days to come. And so, as the desert night settled in, Naeli felt ready for whatever challenges awaited her. The travelers had become allies, the villagers had grown stronger, and she had discovered a confidence in herself that she had never known before. Life was still unpredictable, full of tests and surprises, but she now understood something important. She was capable, she was brave, and she could make a difference in the world around her. After the desert storm passed, life at the village and ranch slowly returned to a calmer rhythm. But Nayeli noticed that things were not entirely as peaceful as they seemed. The villagers were still cautious around the travelers, some whispering doubts, while others seemed reluctant to fully accept change. Nayeli realized that her role was not just to protect or guide, but to help others understand the importance of trust, patience, and cooperation. Each day brought new responsibilities. Nayeli had begun to take on more work at the ranch and in the village. She helped the travelers with tasks, showing them how to navigate the desert, care for the animals, and repair equipment. She also assisted her fellow villagers, explaining how to work with the travelers safely and efficiently. It was exhausting work, both physically and mentally, but she felt proud. She could see the difference her guidance was making. The villagers were starting to trust her judgment, and the travelers were beginning to rely on her knowledge of the land. Yet, not all problems could be solved by hard work alone. One morning, Nayeli discovered that a small herd of goats had gone missing from the village pens. Diegogo, panic rippled through the community. Livestock was essential for food and trade, and losing animals threatened everyone's survival. Nayeli felt a familiar tension rise in her chest. She had faced challenges before, but this time the consequences felt heavier. She understood that finding the goats would not only test her skills, but also her ability to earn trust from those who still doubted her. Elias noticed her worried expression. "We will find them," he said quietly. "But remember, this is not just about looking for lost animals. You will need to observe carefully, think ahead, and consider every possibility. You cannot rely on strength alone. You must use your mind as well." Nayeli nodded, taking a deep breath. She began searching the surrounding hills and valleys, paying attention to tracks, broken branches, and signs of movement. Hours passed, and she felt her hope beginning to waver. But then, near a dry creek bed, she noticed faint hoofprints that led toward a nearby canyon. Her heart lifted. Carefully, she followed the trail, mindful of every sound and shadow. The canyon was steep and rocky, and Nayeli had to move slowly to avoid slipping. She thought about everything Elias had taught her: how to balance, how to watch the wind, how to anticipate danger. She reached the bottom and found the goats huddled together, frightened but unharmed. Relief flooded her chest, but the challenge was not yet over. She had to guide them safely back to the village without causing panic or scattering them further. Drawing on her patience and knowledge, Nayeli slowly led the goats up the canyon path. She spoke softly, using a calm voice to reassure the animals. Hours passed, and she finally reached the top, exhausted but triumphant. When she returned to the village with the goats, the villagers greeted her with a mix of relief and admiration. "You did it," her father said, smiling proudly. "You kept them safe. I am proud of you, Nayeli." But even as she basked in their praise, Nayeli felt a new weight on her shoulders. She realized that leadership was not about one-time successes. It was about consistency, responsibility, and the ability to act, even when others doubted you. She knew that challenges would continue to come, testing her patience, her courage, and her judgment. The next challenge arrived unexpectedly. One evening, a traveler approached Nayeli with a worried expression. "Nayeli," he said quietly, "some of the supplies we brought for the village have gone missing. We cannot find them anywhere. We don't know if they were taken or misplaced." Nayeli's stomach sank. She understood the importance of these supplies. They were essential for survival, especially with the next season approaching. She promised to investigate and began retracing the steps of everyone who had handled the supplies. Hours of careful questioning and observation revealed nothing. The villagers were honest, and the travelers were diligent, yet the supplies remained missing. Nayeli realized that she would need to think creatively. She examined the storage area carefully, noting that one of the crates had been moved slightly from its original place. Small footprints led toward a cluster of bushes near the edge of the village. Nayeli followed the trail, her senses sharp, until she discovered the missing supplies hidden beneath branches. It appeared that a group of wild dogs had scavenged the area and dragged some of the items away. When she returned the supplies, the villagers and travelers were impressed by her determination and quick thinking. But Nayeli understood that the experience had taught her a deeper lesson. Challenges were not always caused by people. Sometimes nature itself could test your resolve. Success required careful observation, patience, and adaptability. Yet, even with these successes, Nayeli faced another struggle, this time of the heart and mind. She began to notice that some of the travelers were forming close bonds with villagers. While this was natural and positive in many ways, it also created tension. Some villagers felt jealous or uneasy about the newcomers, while some travelers struggled to adjust to the strict routines of village life. Nayeli found herself mediating conflicts, offering advice, and sometimes making difficult choices to maintain peace. One evening, as she sat with Elias, she shared her concerns. "I feel like I am responsible for everyone's feelings," she said, her voice quiet but tense. "I try to help, but sometimes it feels like no matter what I do, someone is upset. How do I handle this?" Elias looked at her, his expression thoughtful. "You cannot control everyone," he said gently. "Your job is to guide, to teach, and to protect. You can show people the right path, but each person must choose how they follow it. Patience, honesty, and fairness will help, but you cannot take responsibility for every emotion." Nayeli nodded slowly, letting his words sink in. She realized that she had been carrying too much, trying to fix every problem at once. Leadership was not about controlling others. It was about providing guidance, support, and example. It was a lesson she would need to remember in the days to come. As the weeks passed, Nayeli's confidence grew, but so did her awareness of the responsibilities that came with it. She began to take initiative, organizing tasks for both villagers and travelers, helping them work together efficiently. She learned to anticipate problems before they occurred, to listen carefully to concerns, and to act decisively when necessary. Yet, with every step forward, she faced moments of doubt. Late at night, when the desert was quiet and the stars sparkled above, Nayeli would sometimes lie awake, thinking about all that she had learned and all that still lay ahead. She wondered if she was truly ready for the challenges of the future, if she could continue to grow without losing herself in the process. Elias noticed her quiet moments and offered encouragement. "Doubt is natural," he said one night, sitting beside her on a small hill overlooking the village. "It means you care. It means you are aware of your responsibilities. But do not let it stop you. Trust in what you have learned, trust in yourself, and keep moving forward." His words gave Nayeli comfort, but she also realized something important. True strength was not just about knowledge or skill. It was about resilience, the ability to recover from mistakes, and the courage to face uncertainty. It was about compassion, fairness, and understanding the needs of others. She felt a deep sense of purpose, knowing that she was growing not just for herself, but for everyone who depended on her guidance. One day, a young villager approached Nayeli with a question. "How do you stay so calm when things go wrong?" he asked. "I get scared, I get frustrated. How do you handle it?" Nayeli smiled, thinking carefully before answering. "I listen first, I think carefully, and I try to understand the problem. I remember that I cannot fix everything at once. I do my best, and I ask for help when I need it. And I remind myself that mistakes are part of learning. Courage is not the absence of fear, it is acting even when you are afraid. The boy nodded, inspired by her words, and Nayeli felt a sense of pride that went beyond accomplishment. She realized that her role was not just about leading, but about teaching, inspiring, and guiding others to discover their own strength. By the end of the season, Nayeli had grown in ways she could never have imagined. She had faced challenges from nature, managed conflicts among people, and learned the value of patience, observation, and careful planning. She had earned the respect of both villagers and travelers, proving herself capable, wise, and compassionate. Yet she knew that the journey was not over. The desert and the world beyond it were full of uncertainty, and life would continue to test her courage, judgment, and strength. But Nayeli felt ready. She had discovered a new depth to her abilities, a resilience she could rely on, and a purpose that would guide her through whatever lay ahead. And as the desert sun set over the hills, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple, Nayeli stood tall, feeling the warmth of the land beneath her feet and the quiet pride of knowing she had grown, learned, and helped others along the way. She was ready for the future, whatever it might bring, and she knew that she could face it with courage, wisdom, and heart. The seasons changed, and the desert around the village shifted with them. The days grew hotter, the nights cooler, and the wind carried the soft scent of desert flowers blooming in unexpected places. Nayeli had grown alongside the land, learning to read its rhythms, to understand its moods, and to respect its power. She had faced storms, challenges, and doubts, and each trial had strengthened her in ways she had never imagined. Life in the village and on the ranch had settled into a careful balance. Nayeli moved through her days with quiet confidence, her presence a source of calm for both villagers and travelers. She had become someone people could rely on, someone whose guidance was respected and whose judgment was trusted. Yet she knew that life was never truly simple, and that her growth had come from embracing challenges rather than avoiding them. One morning, as the sun rose over the hills, Nayeli walked along the ridge near the ranch, observing the land and listening to the distant sounds of animals stirring in the fields. She noticed small signs of change, the tracks of a young deer, the shadow of hawks circling above, the ripple of a gentle wind through the grasses. She realized that she had learned to pay attention to the world around her, to notice details that others might miss. This skill, she understood, was not just useful for survival. It was a gift that allowed her to guide others with wisdom and care. Elias approached her quietly, his boots crunching softly on the dry earth. He had watched her growth with pride, seeing her evolve from a determined young girl into a confident and capable young woman. "You've come a long way," he said, his voice calm but filled with warmth. "Not just in skill, but in understanding. You have learned to see the world clearly and to act wisely." "That is rare." Nayeli smiled, feeling a mixture of gratitude and humility. "I have learned from you, Elias," she said, "but I have also learned from the land, the village, and the travelers. Each of them has taught me something important. I feel stronger, more capable, and more connected to everything around me." Elias nodded. "And that is how growth works. It comes from experience, from observation, and from the willingness to face what is difficult. You have faced many challenges, Nayeli, and you have not only survived, but thrived." The village itself had changed as well. Nayeli's efforts to help the villagers work with the travelers had borne fruit. People who were once hesitant began to see the value of cooperation, and the travelers had proven themselves trustworthy and skilled. Small projects had been completed: a repaired irrigation system, stronger fences for livestock, and a community garden that allowed both villagers and travelers to contribute. The bonds between them had strengthened, creating a sense of unity that Nayeli had helped nurture. One afternoon, the village elders called Nayeli to join them in a meeting. She approached with curiosity and a sense of respect. The elders spoke of her leadership, her guidance, and her ability to maintain peace and cooperation during times of uncertainty. They acknowledged her bravery, her patience, and her wisdom. Nayeli listened quietly, her heart swelling with pride, but she remained humble. She knew that she had not achieved this alone, and that every success had been the result of teamwork, learning, and persistence. After the meeting, Nayeli walked back to the ranch with Elias, feeling the weight of responsibility mixed with a deep sense of accomplishment. "Do you feel proud?" Elias asked gently, glancing at her. "I do," she said thoughtfully. "But more than pride, I feel grateful. Grateful for the lessons, for the people who trusted me, and for the experiences that taught me how to grow. I feel like I am ready for whatever comes next, whatever challenges life has in store." Elias smiled, recognizing the truth in her words. "That is the most important lesson of all," he said. "Strength, skill, and courage are valuable, but wisdom, humility, and gratitude, these are what truly guide a person through life." As the days passed, Nayeli continued to take on new responsibilities. She helped plan the village's work schedule, organized training for both villagers and travelers, and assisted in preparing for the changing seasons. Her guidance became a cornerstone for the community, and her reputation for fairness and wisdom spread even beyond the village. People began to seek her advice, not because she demanded respect, but because she had earned it through consistent action, integrity, and care. One evening, as the sun set in brilliant shades of red and gold, Nayeli stood on the ridge overlooking the village. She watched children play, villagers tending their gardens, and travelers working alongside them. The scene filled her with a deep sense of fulfillment. She realized that her journey had been about more than survival or skill. It had been about building connection, fostering trust, and creating harmony where fear or doubt had once prevailed. Elias joined her, standing quietly beside her. "You've done more than I could have imagined," he said softly. "You have not only learned, but you have taught others to grow as well. That is the mark of true leadership." Nayeli nodded, feeling the truth of his words. "I never thought I could do all this," she admitted. "I thought I was too small, too inexperienced. But now I see that strength is not measured by size or age, but by heart, courage, and the willingness to learn." Elias smiled, placing a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "And you have all of that, Nayeli. You have proven that challenges can be overcome, that growth is possible, and that one person's courage can inspire many." As night fell, the desert sky became a canvas of stars, each one twinkling like a distant promise. Nayeli felt a sense of peace she had never known before. She had faced storms, solved problems, guided others, and learned the value of patience, observation, and wisdom. She had grown in every way, physically, mentally, and emotionally, and she knew that her journey was only beginning. The next morning, Nayeli rose early to help the villagers prepare for the planting season. She moved with confidence and ease, guiding both villagers and travelers in their tasks. She reminded them of the lessons learned from the past challenges, encouraging teamwork, careful observation, and clear communication. The community had become stronger not because of her alone, but because she had helped them see the value of working together and respecting each other's skills. One day, a young villager approached Nayeli with a question about the coming season. "How will we know if we are doing things right?" he asked. Nayeli thought for a moment, smiling gently. We watch, we listen, and we learn, she said. We observe the land, the animals, and each other. We act with care and we adjust when necessary. Mistakes will happen, but that is how we grow. The important thing is to keep trying and to help each other along the way.
The boy nodded, inspired by her words, and ran to share the lesson with others.
Nayeli felt a quiet sense of joy. She had become a teacher, a guide, and a source of inspiration. Her journey had begun with a desire to learn and grow, but it had become something much larger, a path that allowed her to help others find their strength as well. Weeks turned into months, and Nayeli continued to grow alongside her community. She learned new skills, faced new challenges, and discovered more about herself than she could have imagined. The travelers eventually moved on, leaving behind friendships, knowledge, and tools that strengthened the village. The bonds Nayeli had helped create remained, a testament to her guidance and the lessons she had imparted. Elias continued to watch her with quiet pride. He knew that she was no longer the young girl who had approached him with uncertainty and hope. She was now a confident, wise, and capable young woman, ready to face whatever life had in store. One evening, as the desert wind carried the soft scent of evening flowers, Nayeli and Elias sat together on a hill overlooking the village. I have learned so much, Nayeli said softly, about courage, patience, and responsibility, about myself and others. And I know there is still more to learn, but I feel ready. Elias nodded. Learning never ends, he said, but you have proven that you have the heart, the mind, and the strength to face the future. You have grown into someone who can guide, inspire, and protect. That is a rare and valuable gift. Nayeli smiled, feeling the warmth of the desert evening around her. She thought of her family, her village, and all the experiences that had shaped her. She realized that her journey had been more than just about surviving or learning skills. It had been about understanding herself, building connections, and embracing the responsibilities that came with growth. As the stars began to sparkle above the desert hills, Nayeli felt a sense of calm and fulfillment. She had faced storms, challenges, and doubts, but she had emerged stronger, wiser, and ready for whatever lay ahead. Her journey had transformed her, and she knew that her experiences would continue to guide her and others for years to come. Nayeli stood tall, looking out over the village she had helped strengthen, the land she had learned to understand, and the people who had grown with her. She felt a quiet pride, a deep sense of purpose, and an unshakable confidence in her ability to face the future. The world was vast, full of challenges and opportunities, but she was ready. And with that, Nayeli took a deep breath of the desert air, feeling the warmth of the sun and the strength of the land beneath her feet. She knew that her story was far from over, but she was prepared to face every moment with courage, wisdom, and heart. She had learned that true strength was not measured by the absence of fear, but by the ability to act despite it, to guide others with care, and to grow from every experience. And so, as the desert night settled in, Nayeli stood quietly, knowing that she had become someone capable, compassionate, and ready to embrace the endless possibilities of the world around her.